Free verse and blank verse. Free verse is also known as Verse Libre in French, and it is also addressed as polyrhythmic verse. It is sometimes referred to as open form verse, as its name clearly signifies. Free verse has no regular meter and it follows natural spontaneous speech rhythm. It is often formed in short unrhymed lines instead of in complete and continuous lines of prose-like conventional and traditional verse. It has irregular length of lines, and it has no rhyme pattern also. Free verse, broadly speaking, is a poetry which does not adhere to any specific regular meter. In addition to this, the length of its lines is also not fixed. It follows more flexible rhythmic pattern, the rise and fall in pitch at the end of a line. Difference between free verse and blank verse. Free verse is a verse form which does not observe any specific regular meter, whereas blank verse follows a regular meter in its unrhymed lines. This difference, though is not so big, should not be neglected. In regular traditional verse, the unit is a foot or a line, but in free verse the unit is the stanza or strophe. Foot is a measure of rhythm comprising a definite pattern. The biblical Psalms and the Song of Solomon are composed in free verse. Free verse has been skillfully employed by many renowned writers. John Milton handled it in his most popular pastoral elegy Lycidas and his famous tragedy Samson Agonistes, which is modeled on Greek tragedy. Though the tragedy is predominantly written in blank verse, John Milton played with free verse in this work. In the Romantic period of poetry, James Macpherson and William Blake tried free verse in their poems. Matthew Arnold made some experiments with free verse adroitly in Victorian age. Free verse has extensively employed in the modern times as a verse form. Many poets of the 19th and 20th century tested their skill by using free verse, especially Walt Whitman. Walt Whitman displayed his merit in his poem After the Sea Ship and Leaves of Grass, which aroused great interest in the readers. The modern poets like Ezra Pound, T.S. Eliot, Rainer Maria Rilke, William Carlos Williams, D.H. Lawrence, Edith Sitwell, and G.M. Hopkins handled this form quite artistically. E. Cummings dexterously handled this form in order to regulate pace, pause, and stress of words. Thus, as a verse form, free verse is as popular as blank verse. Blank verse is an unrhymed verse in iambic pentameter and it observes regular meter. The iambic pentameter allows some flexibility while placing of its 5 stresses. The blank verse was alien to the English people. Henry Howard, Earl of Surrey, one of the courtiers of Henry VIII, introduced blank verse in England. Since its arrival into England, it was widely adored verse form both in the arena of poetry and drama. Thomas Sackville and Thomas Norton first used it in their first regular English tragedy Gorboduc, which is also known as Ferrex and Porrex. But it was Christopher Marlowe and William Shakespeare who developed it in true sense. The blank verse enriches the work of art as it allows graceful enjambment and natural rhythm of speech. John Milton skillfully handled this verse form in his famous epic Paradise Lost. It became a popular verse form for narrative and reflective poetry. Thus, blank verse became the most admired form of the poets and playwrights of every age. The Elizabethan and Jacobean playwrights derived much delight while using blank verse in their plays. In the Romantic Revival, James Thompson composed his poem The Seasons in blank verse. Edward Young's most popular poem Night Thoughts on Life, Death and Immortality or The Complaint was written in blank verse comprising 10,000 lines. It was praised by Samuel Johnson and James Boswell. It was published in 9 books in 1742, the elegiac note pervades the poem. The poem was praised and appreciated in Britain and had great influence in Europe. The chief thing is that it was composed in blank verse. Some major works by the renowned poets were produced in blank verse. William Cowper's poem The Task, William Wordsworth's The Prelude, Robert Browning's poem The Ring and the Book, and Lord Tennyson's Ulysses are written in blank verse. It is to be noted that T.S. Eliot's major work The Waste Land is in blank verse. Thus, free verse and blank verse, though they appear similar, they have some differences. Please subscribe Literature Guide.